but also prevent revenue generated from commerce of marijuana from going to criminal enterprises, prevent distribution of marijuana to persons under 21, and prevent the diversion of marijuana to illicit markets. Now, I did not hear caregivers in there.
I didn't either.
I did hear an identifiable category of people, which you could say are those that are participating in the illicit market or those that are not in the regulated market and involved with the...
It doesn't say go after them. It just says, like, by doing this other stuff, it'll help out with those things.
What I'm saying is this. There's an interesting challenge here. If a legislature is looking at this objectively, how do we not arrest and penalize people for personal possession and cultivation of marijuana, and at the same time remove commercial production and distribution of marijuana to illicit markets? I mean, you'd think that if there's illicit market activity that's caught, there would be a reason for them to do something and try to prevent it. I don't know what I'm saying.
Already. Yeah, you don't have to do anything else. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So that would be something that seems to come out of the MRTA. And if they don't find something within MRTA that would allow for the coverage of that, which is to prevent commercial production going to the illicit market. But
I'm pretty sure there's language.
You don't have to cover it. You cover it by allowing the activity. The activity helps out with those things. You don't have to, like, have some kind of mechanism in place where there's penalties or consequences if those things.
Here's the point I wanted to get to. Here's the main point, and then we can move on. This act, and this is in the Section 4. This act does not limit any privileges, rights, immunities, or defenses of a person as provided in the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, the Medical Marijuana Facilities Act, or any other laws of the state allowing for regulated marijuana for medical use. So the point is that if it's the regulated market players within the commercial industry that call out and say we have to go over caregivers, I would say that the law that allows them to operate, the law that gives them the commercial license, the law that identifies them as they're
violating the spirit and intent of the law.
The intent of the law that they get their authority and make their money and lobby the government says this act does not limit any privileges, rights, and that's the intent of this act. The intent of the right is to leave caregivers alone. That's what this says.
Yeah, that's exactly what
it says. That people involved with an illicit market, and this act categorically removes the MMA as being in the definition or the framework of the illicit market.
Correct.
They consider it a completely different thing. This is the point.
Because we're doing this, don't use this as an excuse for fucking over the caregivers.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. And it goes back to the initial loss of the narrative to a certain degree that they were able to frame this whole thing in caregivers. Leave the fucking caregivers alone. The caregivers that are defined in the law are completely different people. Why are they presumptively in violation?
They're not. Like we said last week, these businesses were not that many months ago, many of them buying weed from caregivers. And now it's somehow a problem. So what the fuck?
That doesn't even... that's an important point, of course, for the longevity and the equity and the tragedy that you'd even pick on caregivers at this point. But I'm saying from a legal perspective, this act does not limit any privileges, rights, immunities, or defenses of a person as provided in the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. What does this act allow for? It might allow for limiting illicit market. Just call it illicit market. Call it non-regulated market. Don't call it caregivers. And that's really been the problem. And if they're going to call this thing as our act of regulating this, defines it in three different categories. You've got the licensed activity. Well, you got four. You got personal possession and cultivation at home. You've got licensed commercial activity controlled by the state through licensing. You have the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, and then you have the illicit market.
Right.
Those are the categories of individuals this law covers. Nowhere does it authorize, encourage, even suggest that the MMA is on the table for this act to touch.
The amendments hurt the caregivers, but meanwhile do not address the issues that they say they have concern with.
They're right. And the point is they're not even willing to face it because it's some other thing other than a caregiver and a patient.
The motivation is to hurt the caregiver system. I mean,
the motivation...
under some smoke and mirrors of...
the motivation is to stop the illicit market that they claim is being provided by caregivers. It's not. It might be people that... It's something else. It's some other activity. It's not caregivers because the definition of a caregiver is what? A person that agrees to assist a person, a qualified patient, which is the definition of a person with a debilitating condition, with their medical use of marijuana. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, these
That's what a
businesses
caregiver is.
are making how many billions? These businesses in Michigan. What was the estimated total for the year? It was over $1 billion. It was crazy.
For the dollar amount?
Yeah, of revenue.
It's $2 billion.
That's what I'm saying. It's insane.
Last month they had $1.6 million in sales.
And it's only going to go up, probably, I would guess, right?
You would think. I find it ironic that we're even going through this. It's insane.
To the fullest extent possible, this act shall be interpreted in accordance with the purpose and intent set forth in this purpose and intent section.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I wish, because there's no, just from a legal perspective, what I just mentioned here, it should end the discussion.
I mean, that's a problem. But I mean, just from a more macro level, I mean, if we're really going to respect the will of the voters didn't intend for this. They didn't call for this. So what the hell, man? I mean, this is sacred, and fuck you for even considering it. It's insane, and it's not a problem. But out, and everything will be fine. It's been fine. There hasn't. I mean, there are isolated issues, but none of them are severe. And you know what? Every single industry has isolated issues. Just like in the regulated market, there's isolated issues. We don't call attention to those and say the entire system's a failure. It's absolutely ridiculous.
So Adam says something in the comments, and is about how about the legislature go after the regulated market for all the violations that happen within that system. And so maybe, but that reminds me of the further conversation that we've had, Michael, that the other way that the big money interests and others could be looking at this is try to look at the existing system and work on removing a lot of the restrictions and prohibitions and costly standards, that could make things a lot easier too, and offer some better business without having to hurt other people's activity. Particularly when it's like literally, in this case, inhumane.
Right. Ridiculous.
Well, the irony is that this act was a result of the unequivocal recognition by Michigan voters that prohibition doesn't work. It's patently unfair that people can drink alcohol, which is more dangerous than usage, and not get arrested, and people are getting thrown in jail for marijuana. It's an absurdity. So at its most simple level, there's that. But the idea that prohibition is going to work, and the idea that people are going to be arrested and continue to do this, and that's going to bring about solutions and not more damage, was a throw in the towel of the voter. That's what the voter initiative 2018 could be said it was. So the idea that we're talking about this now by creating more laws and going after people instead of acknowledging this is the argument. This is what happens when the people that lose the war are at the table after the war is over, getting to dictate what post-war is going to look like.
Well, I'm not sure that, I mean, in some regards, I think it is. But I think even more so that what's disappointing is these people, I mean, they're on our side, right? If you look at legalization, like they're clearly pro it being legal. They're making a shitload of money off of it, and this is being done to us from internally. I know it doesn't feel like it. It feels a lot like if you guys remember back when the MRC was around. It feels very much like that shit. And unfortunately,
You know who their lobbyist was.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And
And
some of those guys are in this new incarnation of
It doesn't surprise
big
me
money
one
interest.
bit.
Yeah.
Not one bit. And, unfortunately, it's going to be a threat. And even if we overcome this challenge and win this battle, the war is going to be ongoing. They are not just going to go away. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think it's going to be an extended fight.
It will. It'll be similar to the way the MMA was attacked, right?
Right.
It's interesting, like it was the People's Law. Now there's all these others that are taking certain pieces of it and trying to manipulate it by political influence, use of resources that they've garnered from the passage of this law to shape it and mend it into like a sword instead of a shield like it was intended for. And it's similar to the MMA. I mean, I think we went over time. At the end of the day, there's so many different attacks, so many terrible interpretations that could have resulted in. I mean, I say to this day, look, the worst part about all this is that we went through such an impact of caregivers and patients and carnage and forfeiture and felonies and story after story, and every tragic story was a case that had a bad start at the court.
Yeah.
Some bad rulings, some judge totally screwing it. Court of Appeals dancing
Attorneys
on it.
not doing their jobs.
Some Court of Appeals dancing on some stuff, and then the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court straightening much of it out.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, most, if not all, so think about this. Most of the, so when I think about all the Supreme Court cases, and I'm just talking about the history, 12, 13 years, to be ruined by the stupidity of this thing. Like this whole idea, this bad idea that's being perpetuated. I mean, there's so much that gave meat to the MMA's People Initiative.
Right.
And I mean, starting with Kalanick and King and the out enclosure, you got Balsma, you got Kuhn with the driving and the patients, right? Like that was
a good one.
That was unanimous. You got
that was a good one.
Tirbeek.
Turbeek was a good one, but it's been a little gutted. I'm
By
not
the way,
going to lie, a little gutted.
I recently had the insane experience of rereading DeRuyter. Maybe we'll talk about that. That's just the silliest, most bizarre case. Anyways, McQueen, not great, but
no, not good.
Not great,
not
but
good. Not good at all.
Unresolved issues still implant
Well,
the
the fact that the caregivers sell it to the patients came out of that.
That is not of meaning that was not of consequence, and what was of consequence was that only those 5 were for medical purposes.
Right. And patient to patient was toast.
However,
it was totally different before then. It was a great time.
However, if the patients are over the age of 21, they would be protected and gifting to one another.
Right.
But because there was an issue of that with a patient.
But for a while, that wasn't even allowed. I remember for a while that the interpretation was that one patient passing a joint to another patient was a transfer and was illegal.
That would be. I remember that was more of a delivery if you didn't have pre-medical marijuana.
No, this was medical. This was while this
not share your joints.
all this bullshit was going
share
on.
It with yourself and no one else.
Don't pass that joint.
Yeah, that may be. I can see that. I can see because then it becomes not medical.
What Michael was talking about, though, pre-medical.
Well,
I was trained to that by my training officers. That
see?
If you sit back and you watch them smoking a joint and they pass it, then
they're passing them tweeds.
As soon as they pass that joint, you got a delivery. You got a felony. Oh,
take the car. Take the car.
It.
Take the car.
And take their money.
I was trained to that.
I guarantee that's how it is.
Of course it is.
But I was going to say there was some stuff. There's a People versus Green case that the Court of Appeals ruled on at the same time that came out after
that was a good one.
McQueen, which was patient transfers were legal so long as there wasn't money involved.
Right. I remember
and
that.
then the McQueen went through this whole thing that Michigan law and the definition of delivery, which is the crime is the delivery, does not matter if there's money involved. Mm-hmm. So they overturned that. And even that came out afterwards, but they corrected it
was
and whatever.
Just
but
really fucked up time.
but it's interesting because now that same act would be protected if they're over the age of 21. I mean, it wouldn't.
Yeah, but before then, like it was. This is another example of the legislature fucking everything up. But it was fine. It was fine. There were farmers markets, and it was a great time. You could go, and farmers could sell their.
What did the
product to
legislature
people.
do?
Those were
Or
good
not the
days.
legislature,
The
but
courts?
the courts. They fucked it all up.
Well, here's the thing. I think that every single one of the opinions was genuine in its interpretation. Let's just
I still think it sucks.
put McQueen aside for a second.
Yeah.
Tierbeek.
Okay, Tierbeek was good.
There's another case somewhere in the melee that John and I think Shiler was involved with it. It's I'm not going to remember what it is. Anderson was the case, but it was around the time of Balsma. What it said was during the Section 8, like any other trial, when an affirmative defense is put forth, it's not for the judge to evaluate the credibility of the witnesses. You have no idea the impact that had.
I remember.
You don't. There's no fear of putting. All they have to do is say A, B, and C to patients.
Done.
They say A, B, and C. They say like, I flew here on a witch's broom. I'm getting in my alien spaceship and leaving, but I had a bona fide relationship and I needed that amount of cannabis. The judge can't say that's incredible. I don't believe you. They have to take it as the fact presented as it is. The questions for the jury. This is some remarkable stuff. Do you understand? Do you know what it's like being able to argue to a judge? And I remind you, you cannot judge your credibility. They'll be like, well, why am I here? I'm like, that's the whole point. You're really not here. You're here for this limited reason of seeing if we touched all three bases, even if it,
Yeah.
Anyways, so that was Anderson on that, and then later with the Hardwick and Tuttle, good opinion, I would say, kind of clarified a lot of stuff. The presumption was, but
then there was remember Carruthers? Of course you remember Carruthers.
Well, I'll tell you this. So here's the thing with Carruthers.
What bullshit.
The thing with Carruthers, at the end of the day, the Carruthers answer was that there was a legislative answer.
But it shouldn't have been that way. That was ridiculous. There was nothing in that law that prevented what Earl Carruthers was doing. The only reason that they did what they did is because they being law enforcement, had no mechanism to actually
here's the problem.
Quantify the amount of marijuana in those brownies.
Right. So here's the thing. What the issue was at the time was that the answer to how to deal with this was not arguably for the. I may not agree. I mean, listen. There's an equitable remedy that could have been come to in that case. And by the way, after this case was dismissed later on, I may have been his lawyer. But what came out of that? So when the court was ruling on it, what could they have done? They could have said, "This is how we're going to figure this out."
What they could have done is dismissed it. That's what they could have done.
The trial court did what it did. Then it got to the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals is stuck with the following: the transcript of what took place below and the law. And when they wanted to say, okay, what we're going to do is this: we're going to say that there's 2.5 ounces of usable marijuana, and we're going to only require that of the amount of marijuana that's in the thing, not the entire weight. They could have said something like that. But where's that going to come from? It's not a formula that is comprehensible under the circumstances.
There's no formula. There's no formula. The act. So the illegal act is not the brownies, right? Right, Steve. You were a cop. You can have a tray of brownies as long as there's no marijuana in them.
The question was, how are you going to weigh it?
Right.
How are you going to weigh it?
That's not the defendant's problem.
Listen, I'm not saying. Listen, I'm talking.
You are correct, Jim.
First of all, I'm not arguing against. I'm telling you what the court's position was that they took.
I know, and it was bullshit. They could have relied upon a million things within the act to find in favor of Carruthers. What they did instead was they punted instead of saying we have a solution and creating it, because they could have ruled just in Carruthers' case for a solution, but then others would have tried to use it for other reasons, and it still didn't clarify it. So by doing what they did, it forced the legislature to act and come up with measures. Remember this: the driving force of much of the MMA, and opinion after opinion they would rely on for like case like Carruthers, was
the MMA did not legalize marijuana in the state of Michigan. It created a small protections for a small class of people that are in compliance with their volume limitations of this and this. How do you measure the volume limitations in this situation? That's what they were tasked with, okay?
You can do it. I'm not smart enough to know how, but I'm certain that you give that to a chemist, and they're going to be able to figure out how much marijuana is in there.
I understand, and that was the dilemma. They were thinking, how do we make... I'm not defending them. Trust me, I lived 7 years with that case.
I know, but it's bullshit. It's bullshit.
But look,
and the legislature shouldn't have had to act.
What did the legislature do?
They ended up acting.
And what did they say?
They said it's legal.
And what else did they say?
They established measurements.
And what else did they say?
They said it was retroactive.
Why?
Because it was bullshit.
And they failed to what?
What?
Act.
Yes, they failed to act.
Then they should have acted.
But
this is my point.
People went to fucking jail.
Exactly. It's their fault. That law came out. They should know. This is the point.
It was not their fault. It was the fucking trial court's
They admitted it in legislation and signed their name to it.
I don't give a shit.
It's not their fault.
I mean, they fucked up too. They should have acted quicker. They didn't.
Listen.
I lived it, man. I remember.
Listen, I'm with you. I'm with you. But in retrospect, we can look back and say, to expect the courts to fix that issue, first of all, listen, the problem that we're dealing with was antagonistic.
Yeah.
And deemed it not medical and all the things and parents, whatever. It's terrible.
Bullshit.
So that's their fault.
To the point that I remember we went to it must have been a township meeting up with Eric Gunnels up in Thetford Township. And yeah, you may have been there. Pat McCombs was there.
I remember.
And it was to the point where I said, would you arrest me? And he said, well, we can show prosecutorial discretion. It's to the point where the prosecutors are even saying, there's no fucking way I would arrest this person.
But who wants that to be lingering out there as a way?
Oh, I totally agree.
And that's what was going on.
The point is the fucking court should have been smart enough not to do it.
Listen, first of all, parents weren't certain that they were in compliance.
Why?
Because they had an edible.
Well, you know what I thought? And I guess, God, shame on me for fucking assuming, but I thought that, hey, if I have a volume of, marijuana oil, for instance, if I have some RSO, for instance, that I would be allowed to have 2.5 ounces of that.
Listen, I agree with you. This is what I'm saying. Listen to you. Here's really what happened. Just like what's taking place here in the reaction by the legislature, back then, instead of listening to the voter initiative, which is what is not happening here. Mm-hmm. Instead of listening to the voter initiative, we're overwhelmed with political bullshit and antagonist. The only person, Attorney General, who was the only group that was against it, of issue that had more votes than ever. And when the issue came up for what are we going to do from the legislature to ensure the safety of the children, we had Bill Schuette introducing 24 pieces of legislation from the Attorney General's office.
Yep.
And going out on a political to try to. So this is the problem with stupid politics. This is a problem with a legislature that doesn't recognize what the fuck a voter initiative means and what it is a mandate to them to do. They should only be looking at this and trying to make the protections. And there's a whole piece of it that could be talked about all day about their failures, their flat-out state failure. Call whatever they want, how many $1 billion a year. Where's the social equity program right now? Right. Where is it? Right. If you have $2 billion a year, you could do better. Mm-hmm. Instead of zero, you could be buying these cities. You could give them hundreds of thousands of dollars.
They've got all
to get in an enormous and create a whole bank if you wanted to. I don't know what's missing here.
We've got this enormous surplus from the accidental or from the catastrophic accident fund. There's a bunch of money.
We don't even need that.
That's what I'm saying.
There's a windfall where one of the agencies that barely existed brought in this amount of money. Now a brand new agency on its own that's still doing whatever they're doing is bringing in $2 billion plus a year.
No, that's the total amount of the industry. I think the
sales per month total. Well, whatever the state program
they get a percentage of that.
Okay, there you go. That's what I'm saying, and that is a windfall.
It's what 16%. Is that right? 1% plus 6. I think that's right.
it's got to be outperforming most of the other agencies.
I would say so.
And at a national level, the same way.
Certainly, it's over $100 million.
Certainly in terms of gross earnings in the period of time since its existence.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But a lot of that goes to the state and to the municipalities and whatnot.
Listen,
so I guess it's probably not totally fair.
You know the only
Speaking about going to the state, what about the Delta 8 stuff?
D8.
I wanted to just say this before we move off the Crothers. I don't want to be misinterpreted here. And the only person that may be agreeing with me right now is Shiler Engel and the
He's a
principle,
fucking federalist.
the principle of just interpretation.
Where's Shiler at?
And listen, I win the argument
miss you,
that the
Shiler.
legislature not only conceded, but they admitted their fault, wrote a retroactive law that went back to the time because they failed to protect patients and caregivers upon the initiation of law. That's what that says.
I totally get it.
And it was their fault.
It was remarkable. The whole thing. Like I said,
Right.
I was there living it with you, man. And
But for those two cases,
Yeah.
the legislature was, I mean, the courts fixed shit. They actually interpreted things with the intention of the voters' intention of the act, and they said that over and over. And all the interpret. I mean, you have this crazy stuff going on that was it kind of started by O'Connell with the Redden case and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then, but you have reasonable people, no matter what their political affiliation was, trying to. They were unanimous on a lot of them. Tier Beek was a unanimous. I think.
I mean, some of them were okay. Some of them were just
Of all the
really
cases,
bad.
but for McQueen, Carruthers didn't get to the Supreme Court.
No, and I'll say like on the.
Listen, you're right. Carruthers didn't get to the Supreme
And
Court.
it should have. And it should have. And it didn't. And you know why? Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe it was submitted, and they
reason why-
they paused because they wanted the legislature.
That's
to act.
right. That's right. And it goes to the other thing. I'm just saying the failure of the legislature during this period is.
Oh, it was horrible.
The courts.
5109 died.
The courts are not the answer to legislative issues. If there's confusion in the legislation, it's not for the courts to figure it out. That's not fair to the people. If there's true confusion, and what was going on is
they could have fixed it immediately.
Bill Schuette used the legislature to create confusion.
Yes, he did.
Okay? So what I'm saying here is this that we're going through.
Fuck Bill Schuette.
The idea that we went through all of that and the voter purpose and intent, which was clear as day. And I'll tell you, whatever it was that they ended up with the Supreme Court, 12, 13, 14, whatever it was exactly what you would have read the law to be the first day it came out.
Yeah.
There's not, you know what I mean? Like the Toohey case, for example. Really? 12 years to figure out that.
Yeah, but now they don't have anything on the line. That's the difference. Like you.
But it just means that this is another example of a portion of the law. We didn't even need to get it. It took forever to get here. I mean, it's not. But the point I'm making is that time after time after time, the legislature's ignored the voter initiative as they are here. And the idea now that they're taking apart 12 years of voter initiative being, through the vehicle of carnage, of humans, brutality, that through that we have these. What does it look like when 3 million people vote more than ever on an initiative and the legislature goes silent? What happens? You have 12 to 14 years of carnage of people and abuse by forfeiture and retroactive confessions of failure. Yeah. And now in one swoop, we're going to undo all of that and erase the history of that tragedy, of their failure. And they're going to do the same thing by ignoring this voter initiative.
Yep. That's exactly.
That's
what
a
they're
good
gonna
point.
do.
It took me a long time to get there. All right.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's the whole thing is incredibly ironic, and unfortunately, at the end of the day, history is going to repeat itself if this is allowed to perpetuate. And ultimately, what these people are saying is, we want to throw people in jail for weed. That's the end game.
It's scary because I feel like after. I don't know what it was. After 3-4 years, the Schuette campaign and the stupidity and shit, it kind of ended. You know what I mean? And all those people kind of left it alone. And the only acts they did after that were actually to fix shit. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I think
And it changed. And medical cannabis became a real,
somewhat. But I mean, even when
the last years of the legislation, we never had. Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but after 2014. 15,
It was hard.
After that, I don't know that there was the same kind of a tax and legislation being introduced that was going to.
Well, no, but I'm pretty
Up
sure
to that
Jamie
point-
said this.
What?
The difference there is at that point we had time to educate the legislature that was in session.
My point.
And
That's
right
my
now
point.
they're not educated.
That is my point. Like, it took that long. We went through it, and they're all gone.
Yeah, they're
But
gone.
after they got educated, they left it alone, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Right.
it took some years, but I also think there was some integrity to the extent. I mean, there was those first couple of years were the worst, Jamie. Remember?
They were
Remember
horrible.
how many bills, how they were trying to tear it apart. The tour.
Remember
up in-
660?
That passed.
That was my favorite hearing. 660. It was one of my very first hearings.
What is 660, Jim? Tell our listeners that are.
Senate Bill 660 established this parallel program to the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, which ironically still exists. I think it was called the Pharmaceutical Grade Cannabis Act. And it basically wanted to see marijuana distributed through pharmacies. And it was geared to only allow certain people to grow and provide the marijuana. And it was heavily funded by this company. I think they're out of Canada, called Prairie Plant Systems.
By mail or by the marijuana pharmacies. Now, I don't think it was
Right.
like through like regular pharmacies. I think it created
Yeah, I think you're right.
a new thing like a marijuana pharmacy.
I think you're right. But that was a shit show, and but it was really great, and the hearing was great. And for anybody that's interested in a little Michigan marijuana history from 8 years ago,
what was the hearing, Jim? Talk about it.
it was the government operations hearing. It was in front of Randy Richardville was the chair and the Senate Majority Leader at the time.
I destroyed him in a debate one time on Fox 2.
I remember. And I was nervous as hell, and it was a good experience for me. But Rick got up there and just tore him a new one, and that was really fun to watch. And the best part of the entire hearing was Richardville gavelled Rick and got up and was going to the bathroom or something. I don't know. He was leaving. And Matt Abel yells, "Chicken." And Randy says, "Come outside," or some shit, like calling him out to the parking lot. Like he was going to beat up Matt Abel. It's hilarious.
Well, he didn't know. Nobody knew who said it for a while. Then Matt admitted it like a couple of years later. I think.
It was funny. It was great. Really, really good. He ended up coming back and and he acted like nothing had happened. But yeah, that bill ended up passing, and it was passed though, and because of the pressure, I think that it wouldn't take effect until marijuana was rescheduled federally.
It also created in Schedule 2 of our state's controlled substances list pharmaceutical grade cannabis as a Schedule 2.
Yeah.
I don't think that can be distinguished from that. It actually describes medical cannabis as Schedule 2, which is the paradigm of insanity. You could call this the Vindaloop. How did you like my service, sir? In the Vindaloop, I know the South Park reference, but the existence of Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 of the same substance is not reconcilable.
Right.
Just saying. Here's my recollection of some of that 660 stuff. Number one is this Canadian company, first time we learned or heard of the radiating or microwaving cannabis.
It was them.
They did that, right, Jamie?
Mediating?
I think it was radiating because there's some kind of
remediating by
Oh,
radiating.
really?
Yeah,
Radiating?
Irradiate.
Irra-
And after they kill off all the mold and stuff like that, grind up the whole thing, little stems, bigger leaves, whatever, and then send it to the patients.
Nasty.
Hold on, wait. So there was that.
Little
There was,
harsh.
but also they do that with their vegetables. If I understand, Canada, the country of Canada will, to get FDA approval, or whatever their equivalent of is. Okay, that was that. Secondly, they grew in caves, if I'm not mistaken. Was that right?
Wanted to grow
The old copper mine up in the UP.
Caves
Well,
was the plant.
They grew other plants in there that they derived some
They said it was good for them, the heavy
other
metals.
medicines from.
That'd be an interesting phenomenon. I wonder if there's any caregivers out there that have experienced cave growing.
copper growing.
Seems like it would be not good, not a lot of sunlight.
Maybe a little
Moldy?
mildewy.
Might be a little moist.
A little
down
moist.
there.
Proper mind.
Yeah, but we have to.
Hold on, I'm not done with my final thoughts at
Well, hurry up.
6:60.
We got to take a break.
2 seconds. The other thing was, this is what one of those representatives called the big marijuana, right, Jamie?
Big.
I think it was at Rep. Colton.
Colton.
I remember that there was, in fact, a condition which was this law has passed but doesn't go into effect until federal approval
Yep.
or
Well,
So-
takes it off. It's
Federal- right.
taken off Schedule 1. Yeah.
so there was two things that had to happen.
Federally.
And I called this as one of the greatest plays by a legislature, which was Rick
By a
Jones.
lobbyist.
Well,
Chuck
Rick,
Perricone, who
well-
got the 100,000 for getting the bill through, but
Okay,
not
but
actually being effective.
who knows how much Rick Jones, how it impacted him, but he was the guy that introduced it, I think.
No, he didn't introduce it.
He was in the committee that ran it through, I remember, wasn't he?
I don't think so. He
No, he was. He was part of it. It wasn't
no,
just Richard.
that was the other bills. Who,
Well, first of all, let me
who
say this.
introduced it?
Let
He
me
was
say
the,
this.
what was the bearded guy? I think he was a hard.
Meekhoff?
Yeah, Meekhoff. That was him.
Let me just say this. It's funny because I feel like he was involved, but as we all know,
I mean, he supported it.
As we all know,
Yeah.
and as we were told in 2009-10, if any bill is going to pass this legislature, Rick Jones will have a say in it, right? Unequivocal. So I don't know if he was on a committee, whatever
No,
it
you're
was.
right. I think he did go in front of the Senate Judiciary, and I believe he was the chair of that
But
committee.
he had a phenomenal amount of control of.
We
of
were told that in the very beginning when we started
Yes.
pushing for the edibles bill.
Anyways.
In fact, yeah, and it was very clear. They said that's who you need to convince. It's like,
and he
holy
came
shit.
around. He came
He took
around.
the issue on when he was still in the House.
He did.
When he
Right.
first introduces marijuana bars.
Yeah, I remember that.
Then he-
and
then
then he
he
had his
introduced it again
landlord
in the-
tenant bill. Remember that one?
Yeah. And then he introduced it again in the Senate.
Anyways,
Marijuana bars.
whoever orchestrated that, there's a sense of brilliance in that of the following. They passed a law, got paid for it. Whomever got fat pocketed.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's totally
Didn't have
impotent.
passed it, but it had no impact because it was
None.
conditioned upon something else.
Yeah.
I mean,
But that was a last minute change.
There are people who are so concerned about that, and I don't think that they should be. It would now just be a medical program. We have legalization,
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
and it wouldn't be a very competitive program. Maybe somebody creatively could use it for a niche of some kind. Have one of these licenses, convince somebody to sign up and mail it to them monthly, certain products or something. I don't know.
I wonder if
But
it
it's
could
not
be.
going to be anything that disrupts the existing.
I wonder if it could be salvaged. Like if they were going to do some. I don't know. Like because I do think what's happening here, what we really should be talking about is what's going to happen when the recreational market sucks the entirety out of the medical market, and there's patients that still exist. We're going to need caregivers. Same issues are going to exist.
Well,
we should.
the retail stores are going to not make the patients pay the excise tax. That's
All right.
Exactly what's going to happen.
But it doesn't-
And we have to take a break.
That's not going to handle everything.
Dan is losing his freaking mind.
Fine. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
When you're charged with a crime, you need a real attorney. And here's just a few reasons why. The police, the courts, the labs, the drug tests, probation, the judges, the jails, the prisons, and the entire system is just one big machine. They have one objective. Take your freedom, take your possessions, take your money, take your children, control your life, and destroy your future. You only get one chance to hire the right attorney. One that will stay in your corner. One that will fight for your rights. One that will fight for your freedom. Choose an attorney that's experienced in fighting the justice machine. Attorney Michael Komorn. Knockout victories one case at a time. Komorn Law. Google it. komornlaw.com.
And now we've all been waiting for this moment. Echoes of Pink Floyd.
Above the planet, on a wing of prayer, my grubby halo, a vapor trail in the empty air. Above the clouds, I see my shadow fly out of the corner of my watering eye. A dream unthreatened by the morning light could blow this soul right through the roof of the night. There's no sensation to compare with this suspended animation, a state of bliss. Can't keep my eyes from the circling skies, tongue-tied and twisted, just an earthbound mystic eye.
Planet Green Trees Show.
When you're charged.
The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on Earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting into farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
Bill Schuette led the charge against medical marijuana, and even after the will of the voters was decided and the support was enormous, he still continued to fight against the will of the voters, keeping patients from the medicine that they need. So I think it's important that we all speak up on what we think about this initiative. But when the voters have their say, their will must stand.
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.
Here's Michael Komorn with more Planet Green Trees.
Alrighty, we're back. Thanks for staying with us. You listen to Planet Green Trees. Episode number 538. Is that what
That's a lot. That's a lot of episodes.
What are we calling it again, Jimmy?
It's all too much.
It's all too much.
Which it is. It is all too much.
All right, so we got to these number here.
It should have been Why Go Home, though.
Okay. All right.
Right, Dan?
What are the stories we're going? Should we go with some of these topics? I am by no means married to this topic list, as you know. I like to just kidding. Let's see what we got. We got what happened? The Delta 8. Is that what we're wondering about?
Delta 8.
What's going on with the Delta 8?
Oh, this is the message from the MRA. I'll get right.
Oh, here it is. Breaking news.
All right.
You can't sell shit.
Marijuana Regulatory Agency. All THC products derived from the cannabis plant. Wow.
Yeah.
Who thought they would ever have the authority to even say that? All THC. Who's speaking here?
It's the MRA Enforcement Director.
This is someone who's got a lot of authority to be able to command.
He's the enforcement director.
I'm just saying, like,
he's enforcing.
I'm sarcastic about this, but I'm saying just the idea that, like, all THC products, I mean, it's such a, all right, all THC products derived from cannabis plant to fall under MRA regulation effective October 11th. We have talked about this for a long time. In conjunction with this, there's the amending of the definition of marijuana.
Right.
But here, this memo says, effective Monday, October 11th, all THC products derived from the cannabis plant will be covered by state law and regulated by the state's marijuana regulatory agencies. Now, how could that be with hemp? That doesn't make any sense. This is too much.
Hey, listen, it's the MRA Enforcement Director.
But the all is not contemplative of. Okay, these products which were previously available for sale to individuals of all ages by businesses that cannot currently sell marijuana products. Wow. Will only be made available after appropriate approvals, rigorous testing, and commercial standards that currently protect consumer safety in the legal marijuana marketplace. Are they authorized to sell them through the? Does anyone know there's Delta 8 being sold at retail places like Botanical? Jamie?
I don't think so yet because it still has to go through the process of demonstrating how it's made to the state and getting that process approved and that kind of before
Yeah.
it could then get ready for market.
Prohibition.
That's probably where it's at, and I'm going to be really open and honest that my company was working on a Delta 8, Delta 9 combination for gummies to enter into the THC market. We were recently told as of like Thursday or Friday that that oil had to be destroyed. It was in MRA, it was in the system, but we had to destroy it.
Because
So
of
we
the
were unable to use that.
Ouch.
because of this combination.
Because it came from hemp. I guess I don't know. I really don't know any of those details. All I know is that's what we were told. So that's
Wait.
kind of why I wanted to get on tonight, because that's really what's happening.
They must have given some written document and instruction. They didn't just call you and say, "Hey."
Really, because it was no, actually, it was just because of the Delta 8 oil. I don't really know. This is our person who we were going to white label through, honestly, who informed us of this, because this is our project that we were hoping to get us into the market as away
Sure.
from hemp
All right.
into the regulated market.
Your
We're
Delta.
moving ahead with other things, so that's not a thing. But
I'm curious now because it, and I don't know what you. I don't know the fact, but somebody has to come to this. So because I'm curious, the oil that was in the market that was for whatever the source that is that issue here that they said that the MRA said you had to destroy, right? Means that it had been tested, right?
yep, no, it was all through. It was all registered.
Okay, but then it gets entered in the system as Delta 9, Delta 8 combo or something like that, and they didn't have a
Yes.
category for Delta 8 yet, probably.
No, pretty much that's what it is, I guess. And I think a lot of it is kind of what Jamie was just saying. I don't know. I'm just saying that, as a whole, what we were planning on doing is that's what we were presented with this week.
I understand.
We've also been presented with a few other things that trace amounts of D8 won't work in this state. So if you've got full spectrum products that have any sort of trace amounts of D8s, that shit's getting pulled.
It's now become a prohibited, tested for.
It's
product.
illegal.
Why,
There's many things happening here.
So are we going to have raids on Delta 8 distribute?
Well, Delta 8, I think, is really, I think most people are pretty much, in Michigan, have pretty much moved off. Honestly.
They're what, Alf? They're done with it?
Well, I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to risk your company and everything else just to get raided?
No, I understand, but am I right? There may be, but
They're doing it. I'm telling you, this is coming.
They're doing what?
Raids. It'll happen.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, let me ask you this.
Because right now, as of what happened today, one of our customers, I won't mention them because I don't want anybody to be put out there, was approached by the MRA, and all of my products in their stores were removed because they had trace amounts of Delta 8. Trace, like 0.001, whatever. All of it was pulled.
That's concerning.
Wow.
So that's
so Delta 8 does occur naturally. And so sometimes if a plant has a bunch of it in it, a concentrate will show it up and at least.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Everything we're doing is within tolerances, really. It's just a method. There's this trace amount of Delta 8 in it. There's C member. They don't even care.
And this is naturally occurring amounts of Delta 8. You're not, because we've talked
This is a
before.
full spectrum product. We're not processing anything into doing anything
Right.
else. We're not doing conversions.
Because the commercial market is somewhat driven by a chemical conversion of some kind that may even be deemed synthetic, right? I mean, we talked about that a
Yeah,
little
well,
bit.
that's what they've pretty much established. I mean, most states, like Colorado even, has pretty much made, Delta 8, Delta 10, all of it, any conversion illegal.
Right, but naturally occurring trace amount. How could they say that would be a thing versus
Yeah, I don't know.
THC
I
and
mean,
hemp
honestly,
products?
this is
That's
just-
insane.
I really don't know. This is probably a side conversation me and you should have. But
I got it.
you know
Right,
what I
we don't
mean?
have to do PGT consultations. That's fine. It's all good, and I appreciate that. And I'm very interested to learn how you. But that's an
all
interesting.
happened in the last 2
Right,
days.
it's interesting, and I'm sure.
Might have to move your operation to Texas or Florida.
No,
They don't seem to
He's
give-
fine. He's fine. He's fine. I mean,
Florida, we got some Delta 8, we got some Delta 9.
They got all the deltas.
I got,
To-
10.
we're working on it here. We got it. But
To-
you know what I mean?
for-
It's just like it's so frustrating.
first of all,
I'm just a
whatever
small guy.
whatever is taking place here, the idea that the natural occurring Delta 8 in a plant that could be considered cannabis or hemp or marijuana, whatever you want to call it, is a phenomenon that's existed forever, right? I mean, it's not like this is the first time Delta 8 is just they didn't even know what it was.
Correct.
Like the better argument is how much cannabis has been smoked that didn't have trace amounts of Delta 8 in it or used in some capacity, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, and even like recent things by the head of I was recently reading today about I don't know if it's head of FDA or whatever, DEA, basically one of the attorney generals of the I don't know, I'm not that deep, but explaining that Delta 8 really isn't illegal. That I mean, this is I mean, like there are lots of things, and there's so much confusion. All these different states pull their things. What's happening now is the state of Michigan is basically telling us all that if you want to produce any kind of cannabinoid product, you're going to have to go through their system.
Yep.
That's what's happening.
Well,
Gummies
exactly.
will all be gone. And I'm okay with having to do with my company being only in licensed facilities, but
well,
what the fuck's going on here?
First of all, are we saying and or suggesting that this is a new phenomenon that is occurring only because of this October 11th, takeover of Delta 8 as a deeming it like unsellable, because the entire hemp industry is not still being regulated. In other words, if you're selling it through any other outlets, it's not going to fall to the scrutiny here, and you're not going to have any issues, right? I mean, a hemp producer, handler, or cultivator can
processor
can do any and all of those things and sell them into any particular market they want without limitation, without oversight, without assuming they get
unless they're in Michigan.
No, they can do it.
I don't think so.
Are you limited now for other CBD products?
I'm not saying
right
other
now,
CBD.
Well, not really necessarily, but I do see it coming.
Well, what I'm saying, listen, they've created this network of a bubble of regulated marijuana facilities that they're saying. That they're saying if there's things that are going to be sold within the store, they have to be, approved by the MRA, and the things we have not approved yet are Delta 8. At the same time, they said Delta 8 can't be sold anywhere other than in the regulated market or things that are THC derivatives of the plant, all THC. Now,
all the deltas.
While the amendments to MRTA do go after the Delta 8, it does specifically define hemp differently. We'll talk more about this, but and I know there was a point in time where the MRA had some theory that all CBD products had to be sold through the.
Yeah, but they're not going to do that again.
They got squashed on that.
They got squashed on
that back when.
Sure, they did.
But then here they are again.
They're not
telling
gonna,
you.
They're not.
Well,
they're not going to get.
people-
They won't get squashed on this one. They just
Well,
won't.
they
They're going to
just-
win. They're going to win
They
this one.
realize that there's an opportunity to generate some revenue. They know what the TH Delta 9 market does, right? So anything that's going to alter someone's state of mind or well-being, whatever you want to say, they're gonna squeeze it.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, no, they're definitely
Squeezing
trying to control
it super tight.
Give me my
All
pennies.
right, let me finish the
It's
memo
not
here.
even THC, honestly, it is CBD, it is CBG, it's all of them. It's all the minor cannabinoids. That's what they're going after. They want to control it all.
So let's read this here because it says October 11th.
They've gone after and gotten really.
All THC products derived from the cannabis plant. So that would include anything that has trace amounts of THC, 3.3% or less. So that's hemp. So I don't know how they're doing. I don't know how this covers hemp, which is legal hemp, which is legal THC. Nevertheless, this is all THC products. Then it goes on to say, to ensure public health and safety, the MRA needs to both confirm that these products are safe for consumption and make sure that the production processes are safe. These productions will no longer be available in convenience stores, gas stations, tobacco, smoke shops throughout the state. All intoxicating substances will be reviewed and analyzed to determine if they need to be safety tested through the MRA's statewide monitoring system and tracked through the state's seed-to-cell tracking system, including Delta 8 THC and THCO acetate.
There was a problem, right?
I'm telling you right now, they're moving into full spectrum products too.
Of course
they're
they
looking
are.
at any trace amounts.
There was
any trace amounts of D8 they're pulling off.
There was no problem the gas stations, the convenience stores, these places selling these products, there was no problem. They once again have made it a problem.
What government does best, Jim.
The question is, does this all? What does all THC products mean?
What do you think it means? Even if it's proven that the law says one thing,
Any of the deltas.
it's clear what their intent is, and it's just like Amanda said.
All
This
THC
was also
products,
big money interests that wanted to bring these things into the commercial market.
in all THC products, including all THC products derived from the cannabis plant, includes what? Cannabis, marijuana, hemp.
Maybe.
Trace amounts. How much?
Cannabinoids. They're going after all cannabinoids. I'm telling you right now.
Well, first of all, here's
seeing what the language is right now. But bills are on the table that are moving forward. They're going to make all fucking cannabinoids only through MRA licensed places. So anything industrial hemp wise will be gone in this state.
You know what? I'll tell you what the problem is. I think
the legislature. No.
You know,
what is it then if it's not the legislature?
All of them.
I mean, I would say this. The idea that, as Rob was saying, that Delta 8 isn't illegal at the federal levels that you're alluding to. I mean, the point is that
no, it's one of the recent things I'm reading from. And again, this is internet news stories type stuff.
I know, but the point is that it's not Delta 9. You know, the federal government's whole spiel about marijuana has been that Delta 9 is psychoactive, and therefore it's the THC Delta 9.
Yeah.
It doesn't say that about Delta 8. They don't expand that. And whatever they did whatever studies like they ever come up with to fake, what?
Yeah. They've done it.
The history of their blah, blah story of the psychoactive of Delta 9 has been their masterpiece, if anything. I mean, then it's not legitimate, but I'm saying they've relied on Delta 9. I don't know. First of all, I mean, it's hypocrisy if we're moving into the other cannabinoids. And
again, how long has CBD been sold?
First of all,
in non-MRA facilities, and there's no problem. There's no problem.
Years at least.
No problem.
The kids are dying.
Listen, I think this act maybe have some protections from the federal law, which protects farmers. I think that this may be some state overreach. I think they've crossed the line of the. No, I'm saying the federal Farming Act protects.
I know exactly what you're saying.
This is what I'm saying.
I'm saying, of course, it's a state overreach. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's all a cash grab. We know this is again the same people who are doing it. They're doing the busting on the caregivers.
Yes.
I'm not lying.
Well, I'm saying to
they circulated language that included the Delta 8 issue, and then also included caregivers, and also included trying to fuck over micro businesses. All on the same page.
No, that's what I mean.
They've got an agenda.
Yeah, no, that's why we all
shitty agenda.
Get together.
All right. Hey, Steve, I have a question for you.
Are we done with this memo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can Kansas cops seize cash from legal marijuana sales in Missouri?
They certainly
Yeah,
can.
what do you think about that?
Guess who was the architect of that program, Joe?
Who?
Let's go, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon. They say some say that Joe Biden is the architect of civil asset forfeiture in its modern form, and Jeff Frazier often said that. And yes, that can happen. You take your marijuana from a legal state to a illegal state, and they'll take your money.
They take it. They take it.
Kids.
And your
Michael
kids.
knows. Michael helped out the Proc family.
Yeah.
Who went through that in Alabama, and then they came back here, and the CPS still wanted to fuck with them.
Yeah.
And with Crocker.
Mm-hmm. Not good.
That's about all there is to say about that. Be careful where you're going when crossing state lines.
Yeah.
So, right, it's because they're in a state that's not protected, and cop seizure of cash is.
And they take your money.
Yeah.
The idea that so the idea here would be that you have cash that is legal in the state over,
Right.
and as you drove through there, it's not seizable.
Right.
But by getting to this Kansas,
Right.
you now have a completely different definition of how you earned your money. Can you imagine that? That's what they're describing here.
That's exactly what they're saying.
Could local or state agencies here, for instance, say you were, had marijuana in your car and $100,000.
Yeah.
Well, we're going
You
to
would be in
seize that
trouble.
money under
They're taking that shit.
federal law.
They're taking it.
Can they
And
do
they're going
that,
to take
Michael?
a picture of that. They're going to line it all up real nice and take a picture.
Maybe I said too much money, because then how about $5,000 and 5 ounces of marijuana? If you had some jackass cop wanted to go ahead and forfeit that money based on the marijuana, and marijuana being still illegal federally and a Schedule I controlled substance, and that's actually in Michigan too. That hasn't changed. Can they forfeit that? Or not in Michigan, but under federal law, could they forfeit it? Could they declare a forfeiture under federal law?
Federal law is different than state law. Any protections you may have under state law will not apply if the federal agency deems it illegal.
There you go.
Boom. And a lot of
Why
people.
Ryan Basor went to prison.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know this, but the streets of Detroit has I want to say it's border patrol patrolling a bunch of the neighborhoods in Detroit. So I mean, there's federal law enforcement among us.
Yeah. And then around the Port Huron area too, those border patrol drive around just like the regular cops.
Yeah, here we are.
Pull people over. They fall within that mile radius of a border.
I think the whole state
the
does.
whole state does.
Yeah.
I think you're right, Jim. And
Here's some interesting facts. I pulled the 2019-20 forfeiture report.
Oh boy!
Just scrolling through it as we talk about this. It refers to one of these sections here: description of property forfeited. And in the section of items, there was 2,747 items retained by the agency. Value of property $4,580,000. There's 2,081 items that resulted in a sale, equating to $1.5 million, and some other loose ends here. But I would say that, as they show here, the section of the law that is most used is the Public Health Code, controlled substances. That would be of the total forfeitures, which is the highest category by far, is the 4,000 in that. Now here you go. So here's this other interesting factoid, which is how many for marijuana, you may ask. Let's see. You have
oh boy.
The number of instances of specific health code violation. You got there's 1,254 just thrown out there for less than 50 grams of cocaine. That's a taker all the time. You've got
it's a taker.
This is an automatic taker. They get you. That's taking whatever you got. So here you got 257 controlled substance delivery of marijuana, 48 delivery manufacturer, 5 to 45. This is 2019. Marijuana plants 20 to 200. 41 instances of controlled sub delivery manufacturer, 45 kilograms or 200 plants or more. You've got this is 257 marijuana deliveries. So, how many of those were? Here we go. Here's another one. There's 100 instances of possession of marijuana.
That's
This
a
is
crime.
2019.
I didn't realize that was a crime.
100 instances that contributed to that forfeiture.
It must have been
By the
habitual,
way,
willful, and for a
by the way,
commercial purpose.
Just to make the point, the other areas where forfeiture may have existed, specific identity theft, there's a total of like 11.
Yeah.
Specific nuisance violations, there's here. Got
What
6.
year is this?
This is 2019. Property was used for the purpose of lewdness,
Lascivious.
assignation, prostitution, or gambling. 679.
A house of ill repute.
Is that 100 cannabis ones? Does that mean like
Possession
wasn't there
in 2019. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's here. You got the
does it
omnibus.
have to be more than $50,000? Wasn't there like a new, like a threshold that was passed to make?
Thank you. And the other point that I want to make is the forfeiture law requires. So the point is these seizures, Steve. Don't point fingers, Steve. Is that Michigan law requires a conviction in order to
Under 50,000.
What if they declare the forfeiture under federal law and get permission from the DEA, which they can do?
First of all, I don't know that it would equate to enough some of these cases to do that. It may not be their interest, and they may want to pursue be part of the raid and justify that, right? Because they're not going to, they got to deal with, compliant state law actors, maybe. I don't know. They could do that. Certainly they could, but it usually doesn't start with. It usually doesn't.
Somebody called here a couple of weeks ago with that exact scenario. I remember. Now I can't remember enough of it.
Whether it was they said it was happening or they were threatening.
They said it was happening.
It's.
They have the multi-jurisdictional task force. They have the feds included.
Yeah,
so they can bat it around and take it wherever they.
Yeah.
This is how I look at it.
You don't think it's going to work best?
There's two scenarios we're talking about. One is that, there's a pattern that's predictable about how these task forces operate. If you've got an MRA enforcement team, they're trained to do this because they're raiding.
They're trained to enforce.
So there's a
They're
protocol that's
enforcing.
going. And in that protocol of both for their own safety and tactics and, procedures and protocols and
policies
on site, and then the reporting of that, right? The reporting of that is all the same, right? That's part of the training. They bring their raid bag, and you got your things,
Their
and you're like you're
baseball
doing your
bat,
shit, whatever.
their ramrod.
So you're doing all that, right?
Armored vehicles.
So they're there, and then they take everything, right? And they go back and they put it away like it's like they would
smoke
normally do. And they send stuff off to the lab, write some reports up, and submit it to the county prosecutor, the attorney general. But this isn't happening. There aren't like crimes and charges that arise. In most of the cases that we've heard about are cash seizures.
Yeah.
And just nothing happens.
Nothing.
And the persons are freaking out. Now, these are things we've heard about. This is not the way I handle it. But we have a couple right now where we're right in that zone where they're caregiver rated, no crimes. We're
going to see what's
find
happening.
some property and seize it, and then don't file a forfeiture. Because my point is that I think there's a vacuum of what happens next. Like the ability to take that raid protocol procedures, and here you go, here's the entire report, and guess what? This case is going to involve all of us. We'd love to get some overtime. You want us to make a case for you? Just go ahead, put us on a witness list. We'll show up, we'll testify, we'll bring the evidence. It's a slam dunk. We're the drug team. What do you want? You want 4 felony? You know what I mean? Like it was like a winner. But they can't, so they got all that ready to go, but there's like no crimes to go with. They're not, it's not overgrow. Caregiver is not a felony. It's not, it's not deemed as such. At least they haven't figured out a way to do it yet, as far as I'm concerned. Now there's
going to be some of them jumping right to public health code on it. You watch. We've already seen it. Unless there's been a directive given to these prosecutors' office saying, don't go to public health code with anything marijuana, please.
I think that it's like
maybe
this.
Maybe that happened.
I think it's like this. This is what I really think. I think that the county prosecutors, most of them, maybe not. It depends where you are. I certainly believe that the relief of a marijuana docket or cannabis docket and the need to employ people and deal with all that shit and witnesses and courtrooms being tied up for, it's got to be some relief to more serious offenses, especially coming out of the, pandemic and all the backlog in the courts, et cetera. Like now, people are in custody on assaultive cases or what have you, or at least they're going to get their day in court. You know what I mean? And some, I've had many a time where like my case that I'm taking up a lot of time for is in line with rapes and murders, and I need as much time as they do, and they want to, you know what I mean, for our marijuana cases. But do we really think that the courts? I don't know. I guess it depends where it is. Amanda, do you think that these courts want to start? I mean, because I would say the courts are less marijuana cases than years past, right? We could say that, right?
I would think so.
I'm wondering if when they're going to start doing it to the licensed operators and going in after the, one reports another or something like that, and they kind of implode, and then the seizures are really going to hurt. They're going to hurt bad.
You think they're going to start rating the?
I don't know.
License?
Maybe there's some that would be selling pounds out the back door too, because they, I don't know.
Well, let me say this.
There's always a backdoor pound or two.
Let me say this. There is.
Well, from what I hear.
Well, I can tell you, man, that we've had some incidences where we've represented some licensed businesses that have been alleged to have done
backdoor pounds.
Nothing like that, but other things that are benign to us, and whatever. And they've made them. They filed complaints, and it's gone. They filed official charges towards the license and stuff. We've had all kinds of different situations, and it's interesting because over the period of the rollout of the MMFLA, and I remember because it was part of our cases we were documenting this. Brisbo's position was, we're not finding people in violation. We're trying to educate them into compliance.
Oh.
Right? During one of the trials we had...
We're going to educate the fuck out of them.
With your checkbook, Jim.
That's right.
No. The point was that they weren't penalizing. They were trying to teach people how to get, whatever. And they're trying to be a source of... But this is the early operators, But I also heard one of the enforcement officers describe the rollout of the MMFLA as... flying a plane while you were building it or something like that, right? That was like I thought it was a good, like they had no idea what they were doing. They're just like, they were figuring it out as they were, instructing others. But
we will teach you a lesson.
I spent a lot of
lesson number one, get out your checkbook and prepare to write.
But hold on. So
six figures.
It was not, listen, it was not that.
I mean, there wasn't a rule book.
Listen, it was not that bad. The role, like people would get, they'd come and they'd tell you how to fix things. Anyways, this is the first couple of years, except for a few. But what happened since then is they, in like year 2 or 3, they said, okay, now the rules, apply, and they started getting their enforcement team in place. And I would say right now they're probably
they're ready to enforce.
Well, they are ready to raid.
They're
They've been
full
raiding.
force.
They're ready and raring.
Full force in effect.
Well,
here you go.
They've been raiding already.
So there's two things we're talking about there. The MRA is full force in effect in regards to their administration oversight of the license industry. That's number one, okay? And I would say that you can see, in fact, for one of the matters we had, we were trying to show that the allegations of our client were so benign compared to, because Amanda, to answer your question, they have all this stuff published on MRA's website. It can be found what types of sanctions, what kind of complaints were made. If they get to the public, an allegation doesn't get there, but if a complaint is filed that results in a judgment of some kind that's not a dismissal, it's public record.
Outlines the penalty.
Yeah, so it's all public record. So you can almost see that, because at one point there was none, and then all of a sudden there was like 25, right? I mean, over whatever the period of time is, you could see like, oh, this company did this. That's on the low end of penalty, right? Versus this company over here got, wow, a $250,000 fine. They must have really done some bad.
They must have fucked up.
How do they still have their license? You know what I mean? Or that kind of stuff. But you can just see across the board. And like in criminal law, they've got a thing called the guidelines, which is kind of like the method by which you would measure an individual's potential sentence. So you should be able to guide, like, okay, you got one of these, this company's your company right here that you want me to defend is charges. Well, let's look and see what other rulings have resulted. You know what I'm saying? It gives some kind of, and it's kind of building itself
Little
into
guidance.
I'm gonna have to take a little peek at that.
Yeah, they're probably, but since there's no data, they're probably just kind of shooting from the hip, eh?
Pretty
That's
educational.
what government does best.
But hold on,
Jim.
it's interesting because the shooting from the hip is like how they negotiate. Like they're like, I'll tell you, they're like, okay, what do you want to do? They're like, okay, how about and
How about you write me a check for $220?
we've had some really ridiculous. We've had some.
Call it good.
We've had some situations where the initiation of the operator and the allegation involved information that they'd been confirmed through the metric, through the metric, and when they got instructed, and they instructed them how to do something throughout the metric, to which they were told by the state it's not allowed, and a complaint was filed against them. That kind of stuff was going on.
I know. I heard that one.
It's some loopy-loop stuff. We had another guy. We didn't have representative. They I don't know. They try to do like a pre-something settlement with like a pre-complaint, whatever, and they want to charge like $3,000 or something. And then what happened? They said, "Oh, really? Watch this now." And they got him on he was like a phone trial, and the judge ruled like, I don't know, like 50,
Yeah, he
60.
didn't take the offer.
Or something. They just destroyed him. I don't know. It was a
He ended
nightmare.
up, it was
Not good.
$30,000 or more.
Something
I
like
think,
that,
fine
right.
that he ended up
So the
having to
types
pay.
of cases are changing then, from what it sounds like.
Well, the other
It's
thing,
like-
right, and these are just the penalties. See, because in principle, the license industry does not result in crimes. They've been given a license. There's be a license penalty that is determined by the
board.
agency that runs the licensing. It would be like if a teacher had a complaint about their license, and the teachers board licensing committee would, or a pharmacist was written up on some. All right, so that's that. But the other thing, Steve, I think is interesting, which is that there is what was the agency that was the marijuana and alcohol? Remember, there was like the Michigan State Police.
Michigan State Police marijuana and tobacco enforcement team.
Marijuana and Tobacco Enforcement Team.
That's who's out raiding.
Was the organization that raided this caregiver.
Yes,
is that what it was? The caregiver. And I don't know that they have a pipeline to take their case to, as far as we know right now, but we'll find out soon enough. But what are your thoughts on that, Jimmy? I mean, you've heard of some raids. We've complained that they don't need to be raids. It's not Schedule 1. It shouldn't be Schedule 1. It's not contraband per se. Can't be. It is, though.
It is, though.
And they're doing that.
Still is.
But
as long as it's a Schedule
what is your
1.
takeaway there about hearing about raids and people charged with crimes? By the way, go ahead, Jimmy. What's the answer to that?
Well, the answer is that we have a lot of improvements to make in that approach.
Well, okay, I understand, obviously, the kicking in the door raids kind of things, but you've heard of these things happening, right? And you've heard the outcomes of those are property being seized, right?
Yeah, when you mentioned not too long ago that there's a list of 100, and I was thinking that, about the, legislation that took place, that its attempt was to not have forfeitures be the result of, a small cannabis scenario, or, at least have to meet some thresholds or whatever. And I thought it was a $50,000 minimum or something like that. And
right, there was not over $50,000. You cannot administratively forfeit. It automatically is deemed claimed. Under that, I think there was still a administrative forfeit, but I also think that
I think it was the other way around.
I don't know. I'm going to tell you right
Where
now.
it was up
Well,
to.
anyway,
What was that? We went to that Senate Judiciary, did the testimony
I just don't know
there,
off the top
Michael.
of my head.
Yeah, it was the forfeiture bill,
Yeah,
anyway.
And that resulted
And
in.
that was the $50,000 or less not being able to or if the $50,000
Right.
marker
So
came in
if
there.
they can't, it's up to $50,000 you're protected, but over that you're.
Yeah.
Over that, they
So if you
they
have a
to
ton of
file
money,
they have to file a
they're gonna
forfeiture
take it.
complaint if it's over 50.
There's still a
Right.
In the circuit court.
Right.
So then the fact that there's investigations and raids and arrests and all that kind of stuff just means that,
Still some work to do.
there's still the desire to utilize whatever means to keep the status quo intact as much as possible until they're totally pushed out of that arena.
Oh,
These bills would only help bring more reason for there to be enforcement or activity to be investigated.
Little bit of enforcement.
Apparently the cops don't have enough to do.
It's all about tax collection.
Well,
now,
they have
is
a
what
team with the name in it. Why does the Michigan State Police have a marijuana enforcement team, Steve?
Marijuana and tobacco.
Right,
To
right. They
mimic
got the tobacco enforcement team.
To mimic
all
the
the
ATF.
regulatory.
Gotta collect that tax money, bro.
I guess. Huh.
You know that's what it is now.
Dollar bill.
Dollar
Police are just-
bill.
Honestly, police are now just tax collectors.
Could
And you know what? And
imagine,
they get none of it, but you give them a mission. It's
They
all those
get
guys
their
want. They want a
pleasure
mission.
out
They
of
want to feel
forfeiture shit.
important.
instructing. That's their goal,
Yeah, no,
They
it's
get
just,
different people are motivated by different things. The ones that are seizing it, that's like their thing. They like doing that kind of stuff,
Yeah, they're protecting us,
Yeah.
protecting us from ourselves.
I mean, you have to have some kind of
I'm gonna
weird
have to take
thing
your
going
TV to
on
protect you.
in order to
Makes
do that.
sense.
Like your mops and stuff. It's like, what in the world is your weird situation? You're like, why do you take?
Who knows?
But I couldn't imagine having like a bunch of trouble that just
Yeah.
because you get caught with the and
yeah, no, honestly, I don't travel to any place that doesn't have fucking medical laws or some kind of recreation laws. I don't.
Yeah, I'm
I don't
with
even
you.
travel with shit anymore. People are always like, you can just, like, I'm like, it's just going to be there when I get there. You know what I mean? I can grab whatever I need while I'm there. But I don't travel with anything. I just came back from Vegas.
That's a
you know
good
what I mean?
policy.
And I always do that because I'm like, I don't know if I'm on, a watch thing or whatever, but honestly, I just don't play the game. I'm like, why would I? I've learned enough about the various cultures of different states to know who's got good deals. So it's like, I don't need to go. Honestly, I spent $100 last time. I spent 4 days in Vegas, $100 on everything I needed for a week, for 4 days at a fish show. That's a lot.
It's a nice trip. You've been traveling quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm trying to tour when I can. I have a whole different thing going on outside of the cannabis industry, but that's just my nonprofit thing I'm kind of working on.
Yeah, tell us about that access at public events and such for.
Yeah, no, really what it is called the Weekapaw Collective, and it's an idea I came up with on summer tour as I started to travel more as an ADA person, with the cane and the whole thing, and just finally admitting that I'm handicapped. And moving forward as I go through with different things, it's like this experience of concerts, and it's not just necessarily fish. I mean, I'm focusing on that because that's an easier thing for me to work on. But honestly, it's like what I've done now is over the years with the Helping Friendly for 5, 6, 7 years, really opened up that scene to understanding what's going on. And now all of a sudden, when I walk into venues, people recognize me, and it's really weird. I mean, I'm cool with it, but it's like, wow, you know what I mean? It's like everything we've done is bigger. It's much larger. And as I stand in these ADA lines, accessible lines, it's made me realize the concert experience isn't what it should be for us. You know, I mean, I don't want anything more than anybody else. I just want, like, I'd like to be able to get to the merchandise stand to buy a poster. How about that? I can't, you know, and honestly, Fish, something I've been lobbying for about 6 months now with them, they finally did. And I'm like, yes, you know, so I know the movement is there. I know what I'm kind of working on is something a little bit different than all this. But then I also see a combination of both. I see what we've been doing nationally as a company and seeing the growth that we've done and understanding that, you know, accessible and ADA platforms all around festivals. I've been invited on to the guys for Electric Forest when they finally are able to pull that one off. So I'm excited about that. It's not even music I'm into, but I'm excited about it. You know, it's like, man, if we can finally move forward with a little bit more of this talk, you know, how do we make handicapped people just a little more comfortable? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, and I
No,
think that as most of us as patients, you know, we can appreciate the fact that there's a place for us, you know.
Oh yeah, because we often spend so much time, like, honestly, as somebody who's ADA and something like that, you feel these things and you feel little. And honestly, in the last 3-4 weeks, I've, you know, in the last actually 3-4 days, lost so much input from people that I met throughout the scene that are like, I put one post up and all of a sudden it will reach almost 15,000 people. Yeah. And a lot of these people are reaching out to me saying, you know, yeah, this is this scene, this is, you know, this show, this is this show. And I want it all because I want to formulate something to present to the bands and the management, again, to work with them, to help them understand that this scene is growing. You know, we're a handicapped society, honestly. We're all getting older. We're all, you know, the joke out there is that they're, you know, the average Rush fan is only limited. You know what I mean? You know, but Fish is the same way. So it's kind of a little side project or what, you know, anyways, what I got going on. But, I don't know.
Excellent.
It's kind of me.
We should probably mention tonight it was a nice win in Lapeer this week.
Yeah.
That was a affirmation on the will of the people. Again. That was a nice win for our friends over at Pure Lapeer.
You're alluding to the possibility that Gary Parks had something to do with it, aren't you? No kidding. No.
It wouldn't surprise me if he was behind it.
To avoid, you know, a mess.
That would have been a mess.
No
That's
matter
all
how
I
it
was.
turned out, it would have been an expensive mess for everybody.
That's what I was thinking. That was going to be a big mess if that turned out the other way. But it wasn't even close.
You know, we were talking to the owner of one of the businesses, a friend of mine. He's a lawyer, smart guy. And he's like, you know, they can't. It's like a business taking, Mike. You know how much I'm going to sue him for? I mean, it's crazy. And apparently they were encouraging on their website to vote against repealing it, suggesting that if it passed, they were going to have to assess every resident like a $17,000 fee for the year to cover the lawsuit. The city was like, no, stop. It's funny.
Wait a minute.
It would have got ugly.
Changed their mind.
Well, the city didn't bring it. It was a voter initiative to take it off, to opt in,
undo it,
to opt out, to like reverse out.
Yeah, opt out.
And this is after, you know, 3 or 4 businesses there have licenses have been operating for 2-3 years. You know,
Trying to make an Audi an innie.
yeah,
Trying to put the cat back in the bag.
genie back in the bottle,
Never works.
People said no.
toothpaste back in the tube.
People said no.
And also Prop E in Detroit.
Yes, I was. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for the.
Tell us about that.
Entheogenic plants and
Okay.
fungi.
The-
Lowest level
If you want to
priority.
eat some
But there was another.
fungi.
Jim, find out for me. I need a source. We had our my good friend Todd Levitt, but not Todd Levitt, Todd Perkins,
TP.
Laverne's Shrimp House. Remember?
Yeah, I do.
And he had run a ballot initiative which
Oh yeah.
was challenged, and then our friend Judge Kenny ruled in his favor to put it onto the ballot,
boy.
overruled the, oh, yeah, right. All right.
Boom.
Kenny. Ruled to put it onto the, because he's in the circuit now, he's over in the circuit court, so he'd get that kind of case instead of, and, I'm sorry, man. I was pointing at Steve when I was I mean, I was just trying to be, right. So he ruled in favor of Todd and his ballot initiative, but the ballot initiative was to opt in and reparations.
Yep, I remember.
What happened?
It didn't pass.
Did not pass. Do you know that for sure?
I don't think it did it?
I don't know.
It was an opt-in. It was for opting in.
I don't know.
Find out.
I'll have to look.
What do you mean? You got your computer?
I'm pulling it up. We're pulling it up.
Is that your computer?
Fact check.
No,
Fact check.
this is the linked computer.
Okay. Oh, forget that. All right, forget it. I see the problem that's going on. Okay.
Hey, we're gonna find out. It's gonna be a minute though, so talk about something.
All good podcasts have someone that's quick to the Google.
Detroit voters okay
Talk
launching
amongst yourself.
reparations commission.
Okay. Did the opt-in happen?
Voters approved 2 ballot proposals, defeat of 3rd.
Well, the plan.
Detroit voters backed by wide margins 2 ballot issues focused on reparations and decriminalizing some hallucinogenic drugs, but defeated a 3rd to increase citizen control over government spending.
I see.
Todd's must not have been on there.
I think that was.
No, this was the reparations,
right?
but I think it also dealt with the opt-in.
The opt-in.
Was anything about marijuana? I thought those two were tie
It just
barred.
said proposal R received 80% vote. The ballot proposal creates a task force to address the harms racism has inflicted on black residents in the city, supporters say.
Yeah.
Then there was proposal E, which was the one we're talking about to decriminalization of the entheogenic plants. And
I thought that somehow was tied to the to opting in. I could be wrong. Does anyone? All right, never mind.
I don't know.
Doesn't look like it.
It's inconclusive.
No. Just entheogenic plants.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
We got.
And that was like 61 point something percent too. It was pretty big.
The plant.
that was it. That was
And
that was
an
Todd.
off election.
That was the Todd Perkins.
Was there any marijuana involved with that?
It doesn't say anything about marijuana. I'm looking. No, it doesn't say anything like that.
Here you go.
Yeah, just decriminalization, really. I mean, which is great.
Lowest level enforcement priority.
Yeah, at least it moves us further down the thing, like Washtenaw and all that.
All right, so here's one of the other stories that was kind of I'm gonna have a tough time finding the actual.
It says
okay, got it.
Detroiters passed the proposal to create reparations task force.
They did.
And decrim.
It's just a task force.
They say
That's how it starts, is the task
according
force.
to
Right.
according to WXYZ.
That's what I thought. I thought it was. I thought the reparations task force and the cannabis one were going to be tied together in some way. They were going to use those to create some revenue for and again, Todd explained to everybody
100% of the vote.
that the reparations piece was not checks being handed out, but to invest into the infrastructure of Detroit, whatever. So apparently it's in Maine. We hear this story, 4 cops, assistant DA among those charged in a $13 million illegal sales of marijuana, medical marijuana. What? What is going on? 4 cops, assistant attorney were among those charged regarding the illegal selling of $13 million in marijuana grown for Maine's medical marijuana program. The Associated Press reported 2 sheriffs, deputies named in the 14-count complaint, are accused of accepting new cars and an ownership stake in the operation, while 2 other members of law enforcement helped by providing intelligence and tip-offs, according to federal prosecutors. One of the defendants pled guilty Wednesday, and unsealed federal documents detailed the intricate operation. Those charged allegedly sold marijuana grown for registered caregivers outside the state structure and then laundered the profits in a corporate structure, AP reported. Augusta Police Chief Jared Mills, president of the Maine Chiefs Police, described the operation's alleged connection to officers as very upsetting. I mean, doesn't this give pause for the entire MCMA? Should they be looking at some of the police officers? Maybe the police officers are the illicit market. There's as much evidence here as there is to suggest the caregivers. Maine Police Chiefs Association has always stood for equal application of the laws to everyone in the state of Maine, and we are confident in the next phase the justice system adjudicate this case accordingly. Dozen people were charged, including Rangeley Select Board member, the Assistant District Attorney, 2 Franklin County Sheriff deputies, an Oxford County Sheriff deputy, and a Wilton police officer. The Franklin County deputies accepted ownership of interests in cars in exchange for confidential enforcement. According to the complaint, the prosecutors alleged tipped off a corrupt police officer about the investigation. 2 other officers allegedly warned Franklin County deputies they were under surveillance, the complaint said. All right. It's good they're all ratting on each other, too. Okay, that's what happens. But the worst part of the story that's passed here is they're just stealing it from patients, right? That's like, wow. So you think, like, that's pretty remarkable act, right? Like, it's not, you don't see that every day, especially when the federal government's indicting sheriffs. What about that? You know that shit?
No.
Yeah, indicting sheriffs, and police officers and prosecutors, taking cars and taking interest in, there must be medical marijuana places or somebody that's like diverting to the gray market, and giving tip-offs and, yep.
Diverting to the gray
Where's
market.
this happening?
Maine.
Wow.
Peter Griffin.
I watched
Peter Griffin.
sometimes
Boo,
that
boo,
show
man.
called 60 Days In. Have you guys ever seen that one? It's a show that people volunteer to go to jail for 60 days.
Insane. Volunteer.
Oh my gosh. But they come out and they like some of the things that happen in there are just crazy. It's crazy. But most of this stuff that comes in from the corrections officers. Like those Steve, what do you think? What's been your experience, if any, with the corrections officers? And
I didn't have much
import.
contacts with those guys. We had a small lockup in Canton, and
yeah, I had a little stay over there.
we keep bringing up bad memories
stayed
for you,
over
Michael.
there.
Michael and I keep bringing up bad memories.
What are you guys doing to me tonight?
I don't know.
I used to stay over. That's the funniest line of all.
Over in the Beverly Hills.
You asked me the question. It's your fault.
Michigan's jails. Okay.
We all got stuff, Amanda. Come on.
Gorgeous on the inside and out. I would rate it 4.5 stars out of 5, except for the blanket they gave me, which was extremely dirty.
What was that? What was that book? There was like a book they went to, like it was Go something. It was like tell you where all the youth hostels were. You're gonna go like camping and stuff like a Go. Anyways, I'll think of it.
Go hosteling.
Whatever.
Hosteling and I will go.
I don't know, but yeah, that was an experience. It's amazing. You could just people just make friends in there or something. I don't know.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And some people get murdered.
Yeah. And some people aren't really wanting to take a snooze because they don't trust the other folks in the room.
We've been real quick to lock people up in this country for the past 30, 40 years, too. Just real quick to lock up whoever we can for whatever we can.
Instead of going after the
shit.
hostile murderers.
Right.
I agree. We need to
So
shift our focus.
we can close and wrap it up here.
Too.
I just want to mention, and Dan's listening. I was supposed to be due a while ago, but I'm supposed to be speaking at the Criminal Defense Association of Michigan on July the 11th or something like that, Friday, on the issue of my topic is marijuana really legal?
Not really.
There's like 9,000 slides ahead.
Kind of is.
Just
I
kidding.
mean,
That's why it took so long.
there is some good things.
Dan might be laughing to that joke. There's 9,000 slides. Is marijuana really legal? Just kidding. A lot of stuff in here. It's a good presentation. For lawyers, though. And if you want to come, people can come. I think people can buy tickets. I'm just saying, though, like the topic is like, driven for lawyers, although I talk about this stuff a lot. I think many of the people, I think, within our listening and maybe what I call our community have more knowledge about the cannabis laws than most of the lawyers, maybe.
People got to be careful about
all of the cops.
People got to be careful about the CDAM events.
Why?
I mean, I've never seen. I didn't think lawyers partied so hard. I mean, it was when they had the.
Oh wow! Yeah, right.
The party and the dinner for when Michael got his right to counsel award that night. It was.
Well, it was just one.
It was crazy.
It was all a haze.
You know the rules.
Jimmy.
What are you talking about?
Meanwhile, that lawyer is one of the top DUI lawyers.
Oh,
in,
I know.
In the state.
Yep.
And
he probably drove home.
No. He was. It was a little weird. It was. I don't know.
It was fun.
Do it.
We had a
He
good
just
night.
has to know.
But it was the whole night. It was funny. It was party time. It's good.
They do. I said that's the thing. Like at least it's a better.
I do
it's
love a good party.
It's they're a group of huge integrity. Like much more integral and committed to the cause. You know, what I mean, it's much. They're there to learn how to defend better, how to be better lawyers. The cannabis law section is the same thing. People learn it, but it's not the same kind of like. Everyone's got mutual interest, multiple interests, not mutual, multiple different interests. It's less, more unified at the criminal. But the choices at the cannabis law section are better because there's, the defense lawyers are a lot of, they're drinkers mostly. I think. It's not to say that's not maybe true. It's just kind of an older, maybe not.
Just
I don't
seems like a bourbon sipping type of.
There was quite a bit of herb being
scotch or
smoked that
something.
night, if I recall correctly. Maybe I'm not recalling
I bet
correctly.
there was
I don't
a
want to
bunch of
badmouth
herbs
my
smoked
brothers and
that
sisters
night.
in the criminal defense field. That's not fair. I take that back.
I tell you what, if I was still a drinker working out of this office and I'm not even a lawyer, I would be heavily drinking every night. I'm
Really?
still a drinker. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, hell yeah. I can understand why they do. For sure.
I shouldn't. I mean, but not like just in the office here, like the court stuff, because the court stuff can.
Everything.
Yeah. All right.
I
Yeah.
would be drinking away.
You know what I've been
I
watching
understand
recently?
why they do.
Amanda, what have you watched?
Michael,
Yes.
you know what I've been watching recently on Court TV?
The Theros trial?
I went all the way back, took it all the way back to Jodi Arias.
Oh, wow.
So
Right.
now she's testifying finally. So I'm right, like, that was a very good, prosecutor in that.
I was going to
trial.
say he ultimately, I think, loses his license. He may have been charged with felonies. Look it up, seriously. What's his name?
Oh, really?
Yes.
It's Juan Martinez.
Yep.
I
It's
think.
it's in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Right. So look him up where he is now. He got in. I don't know. I don't remember what it was. Jim.
We got to wrap it up.
There's so many.
We're wrapping it up.
All right,
There's
wrap
so
it
many
up.
good ones, but I want to be at that marijuana law section
No,
presentation.
CDAM.
Zoom
C-
link or something.
CDAM.
CDAM party's harder than the marijuana law section.
CDAM.
They deserve
CDAM.
it.
Yeah, in the marijuana law section, they have prosecutors and stuff there, right?
Yeah.
Judges.
Yep.
CDAM is just a bunch of criminal defense attorneys, which is
Oh,
it's a
I
different
see
crowd.
there.
Totally different crowd.
Yeah.
Loyal.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's good.
I feel like I'm at the cannabis law section ones because to make sure that the group of lawyers that are there don't badmouth cannabis. Seriously, like I feel like I'm there defending cannabis in that group. Anyways, final last words. Let's go to the Jamie Lowell. What are your final last words and the things that you're continuing to be responsible for? Bills are not going to pass. You promised that, right?
I promise that if everybody continues to to help educate their lawmakers and to get the information out there that's lacking at large. There's also a problem with bad policy, bad ordinances being brought up in local communities, very prohibitive and restrictive for caregivers in different ways. And there's some real stuff going on, and it's kind of a return to the activism and the advocacy that in different ways we had to participate in pretty heavily a few years ago. And as we've discussed, a lot of people that we're talking to now don't have as much of the background or the foundation on these issues and what goes on. So I think we can be effective again if everybody keeps it up. But this is a pretty tough challenge.
The new green war.
Don't be complacent. I mean, they're not stopping here.
Keep her going. Wrap her up.
Shut it down, Tommy.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
When you're charged with a crime, you need a real attorney. And here's just a few reasons why. The police, the courts, the labs, the drug tests, probation, the judges, the jails, the prisons, and the entire system is just one big machine. They have one objective: take your freedom, take your possessions, take your money, take your children, control your life, and destroy your future. You only get one chance to hire the right attorney. One that will stay in your corner. One that will fight for your rights. One that will fight for your freedom. Choose an attorney that's experienced in fighting the justice machine. Attorney Michael Komorn. Knockout victories one case at a time. Komorn Law. Google it. komornlaw.com.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Hi, I'm attorney Michael Komorn of Komorn Law PLC, and you are watching Planet Green Trees.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Before you plead, call me, attorney Michael Komorn.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture has returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.